When KICKASS came out in 2010, it hit like a shockwave. It wasn't Spider-Man swinging through New York or Batman brooding over Gotham. It was something entirely different. A superhero movie that mocked the very idea of superhero movies. For a moment, it felt huge, like everyone was talking about it. But strangely enough, that moment didn't last. Unlike other cult classics that linger in the public memory for decades, KICKASS faded away. It slipped out of the cultural conversation, and hardly anyone references it anymore. So that got me thinking, what if I go back and rewatch it now? Is it still as good as it felt back then? Or was it just a product of its time? I was 11 years old when I first saw it. My taste in movies has changed a lot since then, so I wanted to revisit it, break it down, and see if KICKASS really holds up. One of the things that make KICKASS so interesting is how it feels like a Spider-Man story if Spider-Man existed in the real world. Think about Peter Parker. He didn't choose to become Spider-Man. He was bitten by a radioactive spider and given the powers without his consent. KICKASS flips that. What if he didn't need an accident, or alien heritage like Superman, or billionaire gadgets like Batman? What if being a superhero only required a choice? The decision to stand up, put on a costume, and do something. In that way, KICKASS feels a lot closer to the spirit of Spider-Man than some actual Spider-Man movies. The film opens with that message. A man in a bright costume climbs on top of a skyscraper, preparing to leap. For a second you believe the fantasy. We expected him to soar like heroes in comic books. Instead, he plummets to his death. Reality doesn't play by superhero rules. Our narrator, Dave, who's the protagonist, introduces himself. He's not special. He's not strong. He's not even smart. He's just average. Invisible. He spends his days in high school blending into the background, stuck with two equally nerdy friends, Marty and Todd. They aren't even the smart kind of nerds. They don't ace their classes or invent cool gadgets. They're just ordinary. And that's the point. Dave is painfully average in every way. He longs to be more, to stand out, but he can't. He lacks confidence. He can't get the girl, and he doesn't have the grit to fight back against bullies. His life is as far from heroic as it gets. And then we come to the call to adventure. In script writing terms, this is the moment that breaks the ordinary world. For Peter Parker, it's when he's bitten by a spider. For Bruce Wayne, it's the murder of his parents. For Dave, it's something a lot more simple. One day he just asks his friends, why hasn't anyone tried to be a superhero? Understandingly, his friends mock him by telling him that it's just impossible. Nobody wants to get their ass kicked. It's such a simple question, but it drives the entire story. Everybody wants to be good. Everyone imagines standing up for others, being the one that stops the crime. But in reality, people look away. They just walk past. Dave decides he won't. And in that moment, he makes the choice that will define him. At the same time, we're introduced to Chris D'Amico, the son of crime boss Frank D'Amico. Chris is also awkward and he's overlooked. He's shielded by his wealth and his bodyguards. He's the other side of Dave's coin. There's a brief moment where Dave tries to befriend him, showing that spark of compassion that makes him different. But Chris's isolation and lack of community pushes him down a darker path. Where Dave and his friends have a supportive father, Chris has nothing but money. That contrast sets the stage for his eventual transformation into Red Mist. In the next scene, Dave and his friends are walking home and they get mugged by two thugs. A man passes by. He notices, but he does nothing. He doesn't even intervene. And that right there is Dave's breaking point. He realizes that if no one else is willing to help, he has to. That night, he goes home and he orders his superhero suit online. This being his costume, his identity, his beginning. This is the moment he becomes KICKASS. Meanwhile, Frank D'Amico was introduced as the city crime boss, running his empire with a mix of menace and comedy. Played by Mark Strong, Frank is both terrifying and darkly funny, the perfect blend of a villain in this type of superhero movie. Dave, on the other hand, receives a superhero suit in the mail. He tries it on, he stares himself in the mirror, and convinces himself he's awesome. And then in the next scene, we're introduced to Big Daddy and Hit Girl. At first they look like a normal father and daughter, but then Big Daddy shoots her in the chest to test her bulletproof vest. And suddenly, we're introduced to a whole new world. There's something entirely different. Big Daddy, played by Nicolas Cage, channels an Adam West-like campy Batman while layering in a tragic obsession. Hit Girl, played by 13-year-old Chloe Grace Moretz, steals every scene she's in with deadly precision and shocking brutality. Together, they embody the darker, more violent side of vigilantism. Where Dave is naive and idealistic, they are ruthless and efficient. There is the question, is vigilantism about justice or revenge? Dave, meanwhile, begins his first attempts at superheroism. He trains in alleys, does clumsy jumps, and tests his limits. He's not skilled, he's not fast, he's just stubborn. And it's in this moment that Dave confronts a bunch of thugs trying to steal a car. Dave realizes that this is his moment to make his first attempt at superheroism. Dane confronts them, tells him to stop what they're doing, and obviously they don't listen to him. And the result of that is them attacking Dave and Dave getting stabbed in the stomach. The thugs run away. Dave tries to make it to help before getting hit by a car and completely passing out. His first attempt at superheroism is absolutely terrible. He failed. But instead of giving up, Dave sees this as confirmation. After all, he survived. He's saved by medical practitioners. Dave begs one of the ambulance members to not reveal his secret, and they comply. So they strip Dave of his superhero costume and don't tell anyone about him being Kick-Ass. The doctors reinforce his bones with metal and his dull nerve endings. In his mind, he's even closer to being a superhero now. He compares himself to Wolverine, thrilled by the accident that nearly killed him. His father, of course, is horrified. He doesn't know the truth. He only knows that his son was found naked and bloody in the street. With that, the stage is set. The world now has Kick-Ass. After his near-death experience, Dave should have given up. Most people would have, at least. I know I would have. Getting stabbed in the gut and then slammed by a car is more than enough reason to hang up the mask forever. But instead, it has the opposite effect. Because of the surgeries that saved his life, Dave walks away with reinforced bones and dull nerve endings. And in his mind, this makes him stronger, tougher. Almost like it's fate telling him that this was meant to be. Where most would see tragedy, he sees an upgrade. It's delusional. You and I both know that. But it's what makes him compelling. So Dave doubles down. He becomes Kick-Ass in more than just name. He starts actually hitting the streets, actually stepping into danger. And for a while, it's as awkward and clumsy as you would expect. He doesn't have superhero strength or agility. He doesn't have gadgets or training. But what he does have is persistence. And persistence is enough to get noticed. The turning point in the movie is in one night when he sees a man getting beat up by a group of thugs outside a diner. This is the exact scenario that he's always asked about. Why doesn't anyone try to help? Why does everyone look away? For the first time, he actually has an answer. Because they're not him. So he jumps in. It's messy, it's brutal, and Dave barely escapes through, but he does. This is my favorite part of the movie, because this perfectly demonstrates who Dave is as a superhero. His issue with the world is that the status quo is that if you see somebody in trouble, your job as an individual is to just walk away and act like you didn't see anything. But Dave believes that the status quo is what's wrong in society. This group of thugs are beating up this individual man alone, and they ask Kick-Ass while he's trying to defend him, why are you crazy enough to try to save this man when clearly you can see we outnumber you and we will absolutely beat you up? But Kick-Ass turns that question around and he asks the thugs, why are you guys so crazy to beat up this one man alone when you guys know that you outnumber him and therefore he cannot defend himself? This perfectly embodies who Kick-Ass is as a person. He believes in fairness, equality, even if no one else is willing to uphold that equality. And in that messy, brutal victory, something incredible happens. Someone records it. And within hours, Kick-Ass isn't just some kid in a superhero costume anymore. He's viral. A local nobody is suddenly transformed into a national story. This is one of the film's smartest choices. In the real world, superheroes wouldn't be famous because of their powers. They'd be famous because of the internet, viral videos, social media, word of mouth. That's what would elevate them. Kick-Ass doesn't just show a superhero story. It shows us what a superhero story would look like if it was filtered through the modern culture. Dave wants to be more than invisible, and overnight, that's what he became. But of course, being visible has consequences. While Dave is celebrating his newfound fame, Frank D'Amico is furious. His operations are getting hit, his men are getting killed, and rumors of a costume vigilante are spreading. But here's the irony. Frank thinks Kick-Ass is behind it all. In reality, the real threat is Big Daddy and Hit Girl. But Frank doesn't know that yet. He sees the viral video of a superhero making headlines, and from his perspective, Kick-Ass has declared war against his operation. Dave might be the protagonist, but these two steal the spotlight every time they appear. His obsession with taking down Frank D'Amico turned his daughter into a weapon. And Hit Girl, she's pure chaos. One moment she's cracking jokes, and in the next she's dismantling criminals without hesitation. She's a walking contradiction, and that's what makes her character interesting, adorable and horrifying at the same time. Together they represent everything Dave isn't. They're trained, they're lethal, and they're driven by a clear mission. Compared to them, Dave looks like a kid in pajamas, playing make-believe. And yet narratively, that's the point. They're what happens when vigilantism stops being a choice and becomes an obsession. David is asking whether he can make a difference, they're answering with blood. And in the next scene, Dave's personal life becomes more complicated because his crush Katie starts talking to him. Dave doesn't realize it, but Katie actually has pity on him. You see, there's this rumor spreading around Dave's school that Dave is gay, and the reason behind those rumors being that he was assaulted and found naked and bloody in the streets. It's a cruel twist, but it works thematically. For most superheroes, the mask is usually noble. Clark Kent protects Lois Lane by hiding his identity. Peter Parker protects Aunt May. But for Dave, the mask doesn't just protect him, it deceives. His entire relationship with Katie is built on a lie, and he knows it. Katie's always wanted a gay best friend, and Dave is willing to play that role in order to just form any type of relationship with her that he can get, even if it's not the type of relationship he necessarily wants with her, but hopes one day will happen. And that's the tragedy of Dave's character. His dream of being a superhero is tangled with his desire to be seen, to be loved, and to matter. Those things aren't the same, but in his teenage brain, they blur together. Later in the film, Kick-Ass tries to confront another group of thugs in an apartment, and as you would expect, he fails again, but this time he's saved by Hit Girl and Big Daddy. Hit Girl and Big Daddy later tell Kick-Ass that he has potential, but he just needs to be more careful. They were able to find him by tracking his IP address from his MySpace account. In the next scene, we're introduced to Marcus, a random police officer sneaking through Big Daddy's secret cave. And it's in this cave that he stumbles across a random comic book. It looks like something Big Daddy made up as story bedtime reading material for Hit Girl. Marcus reads through the comic book, and it's in this moment that we learn that Big Daddy is actually a man named Damon, a former police officer who was framed by Frank D'Amico and imprisoned. His wife committed suicide, leaving behind their daughter Mindy, who's Hit Girl. And upon his release, Damon trained himself and Mindy to get revenge on Frank D'Amico by sabotaging his drug operations and stealing his money. Damon and Marcus were best friends and partners in the police together back in the day. Marcus asks Damon if what he's doing is really good for Hit Girl, but Damon seems determined on his mission. And then we get to see Chris D'Amico. Up to this point, he's been a background character, awkward, overlooked, and desperate for validation. But now he sees a chance to make himself important. If his father won't take him seriously, then maybe he can create an opportunity to be taken seriously. Chris pitches the idea to his father that maybe if there's another superhero in the city, Kick-Ass would be willing to trust that superhero enough to make himself vulnerable. So Chris reinvents himself as the Red Mist. And on the surface, it's laughable, just a spoiled kid in a costume. But there's something clever about it. Just as Dave is a what-if version of Peter Parker without powers, Chris is a version of a legacy villain, a kid born into power, trying to live up to the image that he doesn't understand. The Red Mist is both parody and tragedy. He wants to be a hero, but his only model is his father, a criminal. So his idea of heroism is being a criminal. This is what makes him the polar opposite of Dave. Two kids wanting validation but going about that validation in two very different ways. The second act of this movie thrives off of this contrast. The arrival of Red Mist changes everything. For Dave, it feels like validation. Finally, another superhero, somebody who gets it, someone who proves that he isn't alone. For Chris, it's something a lot darker, a scheme to lure Kick-Ass into a trap. The friendship between the two starts off as genuine. They parole together, they drive around in Chris's flashy car, the Redmobile, and bask in the attention of being costume crusaders. For Dave, it's a dream come true. He's gone from an invisible nobody to one half of a superhero duo. But that dream is built on lies. Chris isn't in it for justice. He's doing this just to get close, to hand Kick-Ass over to his father. The irony is sharp. Dave finally finds a partner, but that partner is destined to betray him. Chris's plan is to set Kick-Ass up by taking him to a warehouse where Frank D'Amico's henchmen are waiting for him. However, when they arrive, the warehouse is on fire. Neither Kick-Ass nor Chris know why it's on fire. They run inside and find all of Frank D'Amico's henchmen dead. And before leaving the warehouse, Chris retrieves a teddy bear on a random shelf. Now you and I as the audience don't know why this teddy bear is so important, but we understand later. They leave the warehouse, Chris makes it back to his father, and he reveals that this teddy bear has a secret hidden camera inside it. And when reviewing this footage, that's when we get to see what happened to the warehouse. One of the film's best action sequences come here, with Big Daddy storming through the warehouse full of thugs. The choreography is fast, brutal, and almost cartoonishly violent. But the brilliance is how it all underlines the contrast between him and Dave. When Dave fights, it's messy. When Big Daddy fights, it's almost artistic. Where Dave barely survives, Big Daddy thrives. The film keeps hammering home how they're not the same types of superheroes. Dave is fueled by idealism, whereas Big Daddy is fueled by training, trauma, and vengeance. After leaving the warehouse, Kick-Ass realizes that maybe he doesn't have exactly what it takes to be a superhero. He feels maybe he's actually in over his head. He convinces himself that this is actually the right time to take down the mantle of Kick-Ass and just be an ordinary person. But before making the decision of not being Kick-Ass, Dave realizes that he needs to tell Katie the truth. So Dave, dressed in Kick-Ass's costume, sneaks into Katie's room and tells her everything. He tells her that he's Kick-Ass and he tells her that he's not gay. Katie understandably is very angry and very betrayed. She doesn't understand why Dave would lie to her. Dave tells her that he's been in love with her for so long that he was willing to settle for any type of relationship, even if it means faking being gay. This is the moment that Katie forgives KICKASS and starts their romantic relationship. Things are going very well for a while. They have the same interests, they genuinely like each other, and they hang out a lot. He feels validated in just being himself. It almost feels like the movie should have stopped here in order to give him the perfect ending. But as time goes by, Dave realizes that he hasn't checked his KICKASS MySpace account in a while. So randomly in the night he decides to log in and he sees a bunch of messages from the Red Mist asking for help. Dave doesn't know what to do, caught in between being a regular person and feeling the responsibility of being a superhero. Dave makes the decision to put on the mask one last time in order to help his friend. Dave reunites with the Red Mist, and the Red Mist tells KICKASS that Frank D'Amico is convinced that KICKASS is behind all of his Operation hits. The Red Mist does a good job of acting panicked and acting as if he doesn't know what to do. The Red Mist asks KICKASS if he has any friends that would be willing to help them, and naturally KICKASS thinks of Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and they drive to Big Daddy and Hit Girl's secret cave. But KICKASS doesn't know that they're being followed by some of Frank D'Amico's henchmen. Once they arrive to Big Daddy and Hit Girl's secret cave, Frank D'Amico's henchmen barge in, they shoot Hit Girl in the chest and she falls out a window, and incapacitate Big Daddy and KICKASS. And it's in this moment we get introduced to a very interesting point in the film where we start to question the Red Mist's character. The audience feels like there's a chance of redemption for the Red Mist, because when the henchmen attack KICKASS, we can see Red Mist telling the henchmen don't attack him because he's on our side. But the henchmen don't listen to Red Mist because they don't follow his rules, they follow Frank D'Amico's rules. We start to ask ourselves, is this the moment maybe he might switch? Is the Red Mist really a villain? Now that Chris D'Amico has been introduced to community through his friendship with KICKASS, has he come far enough in his arc to earn a redemption? We don't know yet. KICKASS and Big Daddy are tied up in another warehouse in a live broadcast in front of the entire city. They're beaten, they're bruised, and in the comics they're electrocuted. Big Daddy is set aflame, and luckily enough, this is the moment that Hit Girl arrives to save them. She fights off the bodyguards, killing almost all of them, but before she's able to save Big Daddy and KICKASS, Big Daddy dies from his burn wounds. She's only able to save KICKASS. And of course the reason for her survival is payoff for her first introduction into the film where they were testing the bulletproof vest. That of course being the reason why she survived the shot to the chest when she fell out the window. She says her last goodbyes to Big Daddy and retreats from the scene with KICKASS. They make it back to their secret cave, and for Dave this is his lowest point. His body is broken, his spirit is crushed, and yet, here's the important part, he doesn't walk away. In a traditional superhero story, this is the moment where the hero rediscovers their power, their destiny. In KICKASS, it's different. Dave doesn't have powers, he doesn't have identity, but what he does have is stubbornness. He has the ability to keep going, even when everyone tells him not to. KICKASS stares himself in the mirror and questions why he should continue. Maybe this is proof that Frank D'Amico is too powerful to take down. But Hit Girl tells him straight up that he's the reason why Big Daddy is dead, and if he really feels remorse for what he's done, he should help her avenge her father's death. This is an extremely important part of the movie, because we get to see how Hit Girl is also a different side of a coin from Dave. Dave's purpose for vigilantism is justice. He wants to help people because he believes that's the right thing to do, whereas Hit Girl right now is fueled by vengeance. Her reason for taking down Frank D'Amico isn't necessarily because it's the right thing to do, it isn't because she wants to hold bad people accountable, she just wants revenge against the person that killed her father. Again bringing up the question, is vigilantism about justice or revenge? The stage is set for the final act. Regardless of the differences in opinion, Dave agrees to help Hit Girl. With Big Daddy gone, the story now narrows between these two characters. Dave and Hit Girl on the surface couldn't be more different. Dave is a wannabe superhero who stumbled into this world by choice, but Hit Girl on the other hand was raised in it. Frank D'Amico took something important from the both of them, and now they're going to take him down. Hit Girl lays out the plan. The final battle begins and Hit Girl infiltrates Frank D'Amico's penthouse. Alone she dismantles wave after wave of heavily armed guards, music blasting, enemies dropping one by one. It's absurd, it's thrilling, and another reminder of how the film balances parody with genuine spectacle. But even she can't handle all of them alone. Just when it looks like she might be overwhelmed, Dave arrives. Not with skill, not with weapons, but with something even smarter. A jetpack loaded with a bazooka. It's ridiculous, it's so over the top. It's completely unrealistic. And that's the point. For a movie that spends so much time trying to deconstruct superhero fantasies, it ends up indulging in one. He may never be a skilled fighter like Hit Girl, but that's the thing, he doesn't have to be. He just has to show up. Bringing us back to the other theme of the story, what does it take to be a superhero? Do you have to be chosen, or do you just have to make a choice? The throwdown between Hit Girl and Frank D'Amico is short but brutal. While KICKASS fights Chris D'Amico, Frank fights to win. He's bigger and he's stronger than Hit Girl, way more dangerous than Dave. Every punch matters, but naturally, in storytelling, strength isn't everything. Persistence, timing, and a little bit of luck go a long way. Finally, after defeating Chris D'Amico, Hit Girl manages to survive the fight, and then Kick-Ass shoots Frank D'Amico with a bazooka. This moment feels triumphant and absurd. Kick-Ass fires a bazooka at Frank and launches him out of his penthouse through a window in a fiery explosion. It's cartoonish and overblown, yet oddly satisfying. For all this grounded commentary, the film knows when to give the audience a big, cathartic release. The aftermath is bittersweet. Frank D'Amico is gone, Big Daddy is still dead. Luckily enough, Hit Girl is adopted by Marcus as a legal guardian. He enrolls her into a school, specifically the same school as Dave. Here she's just able to be a regular teenager, dealing with tests, assignments, and bullies just as any other teenager should. She's finally becoming a regular teenager. And then there's Dave's final reflection. He acknowledges what he's done, everything he's been through, and how far from fantasy it all really was. He didn't just become a superhero because of destiny or accident, he became one because he chose to. After all the pain, the humiliation, and the loss, he wouldn't take any of it back. He's content. Looking back at it now, a decade later, Kick-Ass is a strange movie to place. At the time, it was revolutionary. It mocked superhero genres while secretly embracing it. It tore down fantasy while still indulging in it. It was violent, shocking, and sometimes deeply uncomfortable, but also funny, heartfelt, and strangely inspiring. And yet, it didn't stick. It just didn't become the cultural landmark the way other superhero movies did. Maybe it's because it was too messy, or too unpolished, or too cynical. Or maybe it was just ahead of its time, paving a way for shows like The Boys and Invincible to thrive in a world that was ready for them. Rewatching it now, I think Kick-Ass deserves more credit than it gets. It's not perfect, it's uneven, but it captures something few superhero movies dare to ask. What if someone actually tried this? What would it look like? And in our real world, what does it actually take to be a superhero? What does it take to actually be a good person? Does somebody need to tell you to help people, or do you simply just need to make the right choice? This film answers that in a painful, violent, and funny way. And for all of these reasons, Kick-Ass still works. I believe this is a movie that definitely still holds up today. It may have faded from public memory, but for me, it definitely left a mark. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, and if you really love this video, please don't forget to subscribe. I only have 1,000 subscribers. I'm a small content creator, but I have more content like this coming along the way. And thank you for watching.